You know, I like a glass of wine whilst I'm doing the cooking. Don't I, Wall? Don't I like a glass of wine whilst I'm preparing the evening meal? Chips and egg. You know, I never used to drink wine. No. Well, you see, it was Aunt Melandra got me started on it. It was. She said, Mother, nobody drinks rum and coke these days. Have a glass of wine instead. Have some Riesling, she says. Kids, they know everything, don't they? Of course, it was all, well, Aunt Melandra was going through one of her slightly intellectual phases at the time. You know, her and her mate, Shirley Louise. It was all Bruce Springsteen and white wine at the time. I remember the pair of them, they stopped going down to the clubs in town all the time and they started hanging out in that bistro, you know, where all the artists and that go. I remember once they went down there and they've seen, oh, what's his name? Oh, come on, what's his name? Henry Adrian! Yeah. Apparently Sharon Louise got his autograph. And breakfast too, I believe. Still, they're out of that phase now. And am I glad? Because I tell you, the pair of them, they'd sit down here, and all you'd hear would be, "Wasn't it great? Wasn't it great? What a laugh, eh?" And then the pair of them would go back for the transfer half hour, and then suddenly one would say, "Wasn't it brill?" No, it was more than brill. It was mega brill. No, it was fab. It was mega brilliant, double fab. And then the pair of them go back in their transfer half hour, and you never found out, no matter how long they sat there, what was so mega brill and double fab. Perhaps it was the breakfast. I do listen though. The kids. Well, Aunt Melandra's sharing a flat now with Sharon Louise. And our Brian's living in a squat in Kirby. Well, I said to him, I said, "Listen, son, if you're gonna live in a squat, choose somewhere nice. Like Chilwell." And he says, "Mother, Chilwell is no place for a poet." You see, that is our Brian's latest scheme. He wants to be Britain's first ever busking poet. What's he like, Wall? The language. "I hate the friggin' daffodils. I hate the blue remembered hills." I tell you, he's looped the loop. I'm glad he's given up archery. Oh God, look at the time. What am I doing standing here talking to you when he'll be home in a minute, won't he? And what's he like, Wall? What's he like, my fella? Well, he likes everything to be as it's always been. I mean, if his plate isn't landing on that table, the moment his foot is landing on that doormat, there's ructions. I tell you, I've given up arguing. I said to him once, I said, "Listen, Joe, if your plate isn't on the table at the same time every night, it doesn't mean that the pound's collapsed, or that there's been a world disaster. It simply means that one of billions of human beings is going to eat his tea at a different time." Do you think it did any good? I might as well have been talking to that. And my Wall, I might as well have been talking to you. I always said I'd leave them when the kids grew up. But by the time they'd grown up, there was no place to go. I mean, you don't start again at 42, do you? Well, they say, don't they? They say that once you reach your 40s, life gets a bit jaded. And you start to believe that all the good times in that have happened in the past. I must have been an early developer, because I felt like that at 25. I'm not saying he's bad, my fella. No. He's just no bleeding good. I think most of them are like that though, aren't they? I mean, oh, they're lovely at first, aren't they? You know, when they're courting you, yeah, they're great then. But that is before you've had your first horizontal meeting, like, isn't it? Oh, they're great then. I mean, there's nothing they won't do for you, is there? They'll do anything for you. Anything. Nothing is too much trouble. It's a bit like that advert, isn't it? You know, Milk Tray Man. You know the one I mean, where he dives off a 2,000-foot cliff, swims across 2 miles of water, just to deliver a box of chocks. And we learn from that the lady loves Milk Tray, and that the lady's been keeping her legs firmly closed. Because if she hadn't, there's no way he'd jump off a 2,000-foot cliff or swim through a raging torrent. He'd go by bus. And there'd be no chocolates either. And if she asked him where all the chocolates were that he used to bring her, he'd say, "Oh, I stopped bringing you chocolates, babe, because, well, you know, you put a bit too much weight on, like." Don't get me wrong, I don't hate men. I'm not a feminist. Not like Jane. Now, she's my mate, and she is a feminist. Well, she likes to think she is. She reads magazines like Cosmopolitan and believes that all men are potential rapists, even the Pope. Well, anyway, Jane's divorced. Well, it all happened before I knew her. I didn't know her husband. Apparently, she got back from work early one morning and found her husband in bed with the milkman. Honest to God, the milkman! Anyway, since then, Jane has been a feminist. And I've noticed she never takes milk in her tea. Anyway, Jane's going to Greece for 2 weeks. Next month she's going. I don't know what I'd do without her. I mean, Jane is the only other person I talk to, other than the wall. Isn't she, Wall? Yeah, she's the only one who keeps me sane. I said to her this morning, I said, "Oh, Jane, I won't half miss you." Do you know what she says? She wants me to go with her. Silly bitch. Imagine the face on him, Wall. Imagine the face on him if I told him he'd have to look after himself for 2 whole weeks. I mean, Jesus, if I go to the bathroom for 5 minutes, he thinks of an eye jacket. Oh, it's lovely, that. It's not too dry. I mean, some of it'd strip the palate off you, wouldn't it? But that's lovely. I like wine. It's like being kissed by the sun. He doesn't like wine. He says drinking wine is just a posh way of getting pissed. I suppose he's right. But it's nice. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to go to the country where the grape is grown and just sit there. Just sit there, staring at the sea. But he won't go abroad. But you see, he gets jet lagged when we go to the Isle of Man. I mean, we go by boat. We've been going by boat for 15 years. And he still won't drink the tap water. He's that type, Joe. Gets culture shock when we go to Chester. I mean, I wouldn't mind. You see, it's like Jane says. Jane says that's fine. If he doesn't want to go abroad, that's up to him. But if I want to go abroad, well, that's up to me. And I know she's right. I mean, it's logic, isn't it? It's dead logic. But it's like I said to Jane. Jane, you can't bring logic into this. We're talking about marriage. Marriage is like the Middle East, isn't it? There's no solution. I mean, well, we can take a bit here, put a bit there, jiggle things about a bit. But the rest of the time, you just keep your head down, deal with the flare-ups when they happen, and hope that the ceasefire holds. Anyway, that is when Jane handed me the time bomb. Well, you see, she's only got to pay for me to go, hasn't she? She handed me the tickets this morning. Bradshaw S, 1900 hours, Man to Core, 23rd of June. I should never have taken them off her in the first place, should I? Well, She didn't want to go on her own. She wanted somebody to go with her. They'd just got the money through, well, she had, from the sale of her house. Shouldn't have taken them. Well, I tried to tell her, to explain that it was impossible. But you know what feminists are like. If something's impossible, that's the perfect reason for doing it. Oh, I'll give them back to her tomorrow. She'll easily get someone else to go with her. I mean, who wouldn't? Wouldn't it be great though? I mean, imagine the face on him if I told him that I was going. Oh, it would be fantastic, wouldn't it? I mean, like, I'd go up, I'd get his plate, and I'd lay it down on one table, and I'd turn away, all dead cash, and say, oh, by the way, babe, I'm just popping off to Greece for a couple of weeks. You don't mind, do you? Looking after yourself. But you see, that white glob over there, that's the cooker. And that brown glob over there, that's the washing machine. And don't get them mixed up, will you? Or you might end up with socks on toast. Some chance, eh, Wall? Some chance. You know, if I told him I was off to Greece for 2 weeks, he'd think it was for sex. I mean, you would, wouldn't you? 2 women, on their own, going to Greece for 2 weeks, middle-aged. It's obvious, isn't it? But it's not as if I'm particularly fond of it. Sex. Am I, Wall? Well, you see, I think sex is like Sainsbury's. Overrated. It's just a lot of pushing and shoving, and you still come out with everything in the end. Of course, it would have been different, wouldn't it? It would have been different if I had been born into the next generation. If I had been born into Melandra's generation. Because they discovered it, you see. They discovered the clitoris. The clitoris kids, I call them, and don't begrudge them a thing. Not a thing. I mean, when I was a girl, we thought it was all just a case of in, out, shake it all about. Stars would light up the sky and the earth would tremble. The only thing that trembled for me was the headboard on the bed. Of course, we hadn't discovered it then, had we? I mean, the clitoris. Well, something's not really discovered until, well, it's discovered. I mean, it's always there, isn't it? Like penicillin in America. It's always there, but it's not really there until it's been discovered. Maybe I should have married Christopher Columbus. Anyway, I was about 28 when I first read all about it. The clitoris. Oh, it was dead interesting. Dead interesting. Well, you see, apparently it was all Freud's fault. Yeah. But you see, he had said that there were 2 kinds of orgasm for a woman to have. Now, the main one was caused by having the muscles inside stimulated. And the other one was like a second-rate inferior one. And that was caused by the clitoris. Well, you see, that's what Freud had said. And I mean, everyone believed him. Well, you would, wouldn't you? I mean, this is Freud, our friend Sigmund. Who's going to disagree with him? Yeah. But you see, let's just say you and Freud are stood at the bus stop and you say to him, excuse me, is this one of the buses that goes to Zachary? And he says, yes, this is one of the buses that goes to Zachary. Well, you get on it, wouldn't you? I mean, this is Freud talking, right? But to tell you something, you'd be bloody lucky if you ever got to Fazakerley. Because there's only one bus that goes to Fazakerley, and that's the clitoris bus. But, you know when you first hear a word, you get it sort of pronounced wrongly. Well, like, when I was younger, there was this kid in our street called Gooey. And his mother used to come out in the street and go, go away, get teeth ready, gooey. Come on in, love. Your tea's on the table. It's getting cold. Anyway, what had happened was, when she was trying to work out a name for him, she'd been reading this magazine, American, called Guy, G-U-Y. Anyway, she thought it was pronounced gooey. So she had him christened Gooey McFadden. Poor kid. Anyway, that's how I was with the clitoris. You see, when I first heard it, I thought it was pronounced clitoris. I still think it sounds nicer that way. Clitoris. It could even be a name, couldn't it? Clitoris. Oh, hiya, clitoris. Well, how are you? Well, listen, clitoris, I was just going to tell you, you see. Oh, shut up, Wall. I think it sounds nice. There's plenty of men walking around called Dick. Anyway, that's how I thought it was pronounced. When I first mentioned it to Joe, I said, Joey, Joe, have you ever heard of the clitoris? He didn't even look up from his paper. Yeah, he says, but it doesn't go as well as a 4 Cortina. What happened, Wall? What happened to Joe, to Shirley Valentine? Was it that something happened? Or was it just that nothing happened? I mean, it would have been easier to understand if something had happened. If I'd found him in bed with the milkman. If there was something, somebody to blame. But there's nothing. They got married, made a home, had kids, brought them up. And somewhere along the way, the boy called Joe turned into that. Shirley Valentine turned into this. And what I don't know is the day, the month, or when it happened, when it stopped being good. And when Shirley Valentine became just another name on the missing persons list. He still says he loves me, you know. But he doesn't. It's just something he says. I love you. It's terrible, isn't it? I mean, it's like it's supposed to make everything all right. You can be beaten and battered and half insane, and he'll turn around and say, well, you know I love you. I love you. It's supposed to cure everything. They should bottle it and sell it. You know, what I've always wondered though is why I love you automatically gives somebody the right to treat somebody worse than they normally would. I mean, somebody they don't like or somebody they hate even. I mean, let's just say I wasn't my fella's wife. Let's say I was just the next door neighbour or the man in the paper shop. He'd treat me nice. He'd talk to me nice. But he doesn't say he loves the man in the paper shop or the next door neighbour. He says he loves me, but he doesn't treat me nice. He doesn't talk to me nice. When he talks to me at all. And I know what you're saying. You're saying what Jane always says. Why don't I leave? And I don't know why. I don't know why. I mean, I don't understand why a 42-year-old woman should have to put up with a situation in which she has the chance, the opportunity of fulfilling a dream, of travelling. I can't do it. I don't know why. I just know that if you described me to me, I'd say you were telling me a joke. I hate it. I hate a life of talking to the wall. But I've been talking to the wall for more years than I care to remember now. Hate it. I hate the joke of it. But to tell you the truth, I'm frightened. I'm frightened of life beyond the wall. I mean, when I was a girl, I used to jump off our roof for fun. Now I get vertigo just standing on the pavement. I'm terrified, to tell you the truth. I'm terrified. I am terrified that there's going to be nothing out there, nothing for me, no place. I mean, they kept a place reserved for me for a while. But when it seemed I wasn't coming back, they gave the place to somebody else. Somebody younger. Somebody who could still talk the language of the place beyond the wall. Well, now I have this chance. I have this chance of going to Greece for 2 weeks. Well, sod it. I mean, after all, what's the Acropolis? It's just an old-fashioned ruin, isn't it? It's like the DJs say, isn't it? We're all Scousers. We all like a laugh and a joke, don't we? There's nothing wrong with us. They're not like us in London, are they? They're not like us in Greece. I tell you what Greece is, love. Greece is what you cook his egg and chips in. Anyway, one more bottle of this and I'll be able to pretend this is Greece. Look at the sun. Look at the sun and the way it's shining. Look at the sea. The sea. And look at that woman. That serene looking woman. Just sitting there beneath the parasol. Drinking wine in a country where the grape is grown.